we go, let's get those wheels out on the road. It may get dusty, but that's the way she goes. We'll build some greasy old cars and drink our AGT. Hey, don't you know, it's partly built.
So it's a new day. We're just trying to figure out where we were and what we're going to get started on. So I'm starting with the fuel system. I'm going to get the steel line put in from the pump to the back of the car so that I can do the rubber line for the supply. And then I'll also do a return line the same way. I think Josh is going to get back to welding on his cooling system stuff. And once I get my fuel lines figured out, I got to figure out what we're doing with the transmission cooler lines. And our initial plan is to go maybe through these holes up in the body here, because both the tranny cooler fittings are on this side of the rad. So if I can get, I think they are anyway, I should probably look at that. And yes, they are. So if I can get tranny cooler line, even if I do this section here in rubber and then just do steel through the tunnel, that won't be too bad. So I'm going to get started on trying to straighten out all this coiled brake line so I can get fuel lines to length and kind of up in there. So I haven't really been filming anything, but we got most of the lines dry fit in here. As you can see, I did a really good job straightening them out off the roll. So we got a few more P-clamps to put in the middle. Our tranny cooler lines are tied in at the back. Fuel line's ready to rock. We're just working on cooling stuff. We shortened the one coolant pipe. I've got to make some room here so that these aren't rubbing. And ran them outside the fender to here. And then we'll just run rubber lines into the car to go to the rad. So Josh is just getting our first coolant pipe ready here. All right, so we pulled the tranny cooler lines back out. Josh is going to do a bunch of welding at the front here and get that crossover tube put back in. Well, welded in fully, I guess, not just put back in, but installed. And then I got to do a little bit of massaging of metal. The only way I know how. Implement of bashing. And we'll see if we can get those to sit in there real nice without rubbing on anything. All right, so it's been like 3 weeks. Seeding is done. Josh officially finished yesterday morning, so I'm back to work on the Beetle now. And I'm gonna get started on wiring today. I scavenged a bunch more wire out of my garage to do more of this really clean wiring. You know, I don't have to worry about overloading the wires, but I'm gonna get going on wiring. I'm hoping to get most of the engine wired today and hopefully finish the fuel lines and maybe even the tranny cooler lines, but it's probably all just wishful thinking, but that's my plan. I brought some coolant pipes today. I brought more fuel line. I brought a whole bunch of stuff, hoses. So we're gonna see. Like I said, hopefully I can get the wiring done first, and if I can get the wiring done and get it to at least crank off the key, then that's all. Well, it's not off the key, it's those wires under the dash because someone bypassed it. But I gotta run some wires on this side of the tunnel up to the front for my OBD2, for my cruise control, for my fan. I gotta go in the tunnel for my fuel pump. If I can get the fuel pump working and everything else wired up, I'll be really happy. So I got another relay I got to wire in at the front for the electric fan. Somewhere in this mess, I have a power stud for the front, an isolated power stud, so that I don't just have a bolt with some electrical tape on it. I can clean up all this wiring, pull this back down and through. But yeah, and I got to pull the fuel tank one more time, because I got to do something with that return line, but I'm getting there. And then hopefully we can turn the key on and test things out without using just a power probe. So, fingers crossed. Okay, so after a couple hours of chasing wiring around and trying to figure it out, I got some stuff done. The OBD2 plug is mounted and all but one wire is wired in. The electric fan is wired through a relay and into the harness to the back. And I tested it works, but the motor is was really stiff. It's freed up now, but it's still drawing a lot of amperage. So we may or may not end up changing the fan out, but I also got some of the wiring at the back here figured out for the cruise control. This is my cruise control wiring. I know where all these have to go. These have to go. These ones don't have to go to the front. This is your reverse lights. So I'll just run that through a relay at the back here when I do the taillight wiring. And then this is just not needed. And then the only other wires I have to do are fuel pump wires. And right here is my electric fan wire. So when I shorten this harness and get it all wired in, I'll wire the electric fan wire in. And then the electric fan's completely done. Just transferring wires up to the front for all that. And as you can see, I've been doing a lot of figuring of things and figuring out which wires I'm going to put where on which color. So I'm going to keep tinkering on wiring. Josh has been trying to get his wife's van fixed up today, so which is fine because this is all just work I had to do on my own and focus on and have it down for. So it actually worked out kind of perfect. And then testing the brake switches, I think they're going to work perfect for what we're doing. I'm not 100% sure yet because I got to be able to give it enough pressure for the second circuit to work. But I think it has a normally closed on these two pins and a higher pressure normally open on these two. So if you just tap the brakes, it breaks this circuit. If you step on it harder, it'll connect these two. So I believe this will be power in. This will be my one brake switch wire and this will be my other brake switch wire. And the other one's probably for redundancy. I'm not sure. I got to look into the Beetle. I got to look into the Beetle wiring schematic to know for sure, but I'm getting there. And then I can do plumbing after I'm done wiring. So I'm going to keep tinkering on it, see how far I can get today. Well, we're downloading. Let's see if we can maybe get this thing to start today. All right, we got the rotors drilled, wheel bearings packed and in. I got this rotor on, calipers Loctited on. I'm just going to do this side. I'll just have to be careful to make sure I get the speedo drive properly in the hubcap. And then the brakes. Oh, I got the master cylinder all unbolted. So we'll get the master cylinder swapped out. And then we can start bleeding the brakes. And then we should have brakes. Josh is just finishing up some welding on the coolant up pipe on that side. This one, I think we've got figured. We got the fuel tank out because I had to do the return line on it. I flared the end of this so that the clamp would stay on. Got a hose on it, so the tank's ready to go back in. I flashed the ECM this morning. Still not getting full voltage for the fuel pump, so I may end up running the fuel pump off a switch. We're gonna see. Hopefully I don't have to. But yeah, if we can get the brakes done, I got the two tranny cooler lines to do. Like if Josh can finish that coolant pipe, we can put the rad in for good. The fan's wired up. We tested it this morning with the computer. It all works through the ECM correctly. We can get the rad put in, get the fuel tank put in for the last time, do the last two tranny cooler lines once we put all the lines back under the car. I have the fuel return line ready to go in. We'll just have to bend it up, that one. And then we have that 5/16 line there. We got to run front to back for the bleed line for the coolant. And I got some rubber line that fits that, that's heater hose, like coolant safe. I got to do a little bit of stuff on the engine to make it run right, but we can at least start it the way it is. Hopefully today, we'll see. No, I got the OBD2 mounted in there last time. I don't know if I showed that. I did get a switch today to run the start because the start through the key is no good, so I just got a momentary switch for it. Whether we leave it like that or not, it doesn't matter. But yeah, like, the wiring's kind of still a mess, but we'll clean all that up eventually. As long as it works and I know where everything goes, it doesn't matter. So I'm gonna get this brake thrown together. Then we gotta get the studs put in the hubs, and Loctite it in. And then we'll test fit the front tires, and we can actually set it on its own weight for the first time in a long time. I have the pieces, we just haven't built the lockouts for the rear steering yet. They're of course going to be adjustable so that we can set our alignment, but we're making some good progress. And considering that it is May 26th, we have 2 months before this has to be racing. Like 2 months from now, we will be racing. So it's not even running yet. We got a lot of work to do and a lot of miles to put on it and a lot of testing to do. So I'm going to get back to work. All right, well, we have mounted wheels on all 4 corners now. It's a little high in the front, but we'll figure something out with that. Maybe not this year, but we'll figure something out because the back end is a little squattier than the front. So tough to tell without the fenders though.
Wow, I'm just tough to tell without it sitting outside on flat ground.
Yeah, and I mean, we still got fuel and coolant and everything to put in the front. Some more metal and shit to put up there too, so. But of course we got more in the back too, so.
Got a lot more metal in the front, or in the back to go, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, up it goes again, put the pipes in. All right, so we put the tranny cooler lines back in. We ran the fuel return line. We ran the coolant bleed line, and we put it down around, tied inside here, and up through the top. And we'll put a couple bends up top. And then we have the coolant bleed done. As you can see, brakes are installed. Line lock is plumbed into the master. The new master's in. Only thing we have left to do with the line lock is actually wire it. And now we're gonna set it down. Run the tranny cooler lines up to the rad. We got a couple holes to drill, but that's not bad. And we gotta connect the tranny cooler lines at the back here to the lines. And we'll eventually have to run the coolant hose here, and then we got to run one line off of a fitting up in here for the fuel return. So we're getting there.
It's coming.
All right, so we put a jerry jug of fuel in, and what'd you find, Josh?
Oh, line that we didn't tighten.
Oh, so if you tighten them all, the leak stops.
Strangely enough.
We got the tranny cooler lines in, up to the rad, and done up at the back, and got the lines all done for the fuel. So for some reason I'm not getting signal from the ECM at a clean voltage to run the relay. So we're gonna manually run the fuel pump with my power probe, and we're gonna see if we have fuel leaks. And if we have no fuel leaks, well, if we have fuel leaks, which we're probably gonna, we'll fix all the leaks. And then when we're sure we have no leaks, we'll top up some fluids and see if we can get this bugger to start. All right, so we primed the fuel pump till the lines were nice and cold. We heard the pump start to, we heard everything prime up. We topped up the engine oil. Now we're gonna top up the ATF, if Josh ever brings me a funnel.
Settle down.
There's no dipstick, so we're just gonna add a quart and cross our fingers.
You don't get paid to lip me.
And then eventually one day we'll finish the cooling system. Next weekend, maybe.
We're gonna crank this thing like Mike cranks his hog.
You gotta turn it down. Almost.